Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Ksubas Daf Nun Gimel, we are going to begin on the bottom of Nun Beis Amud Beis, the third line from the bottom. So we were talking about the din of Ksubas ben Dichron, which is considered to be a Tanai Beistin. It's considered to be part of the Ksuba itself, even if it's not written. Namely, if let's say a person has two wives, and what we want to make sure is that one of these women, their father may be reluctant to give a substantial dowry. And the reason is because he's afraid that that money will not be given over after his daughter dies and the husband dies. It's not going to be given over to his grandchildren, but to this other woman's children equally. So therefore, Ksubas ben Dichron says that whatever is written into the Ksuba, each of the two children, or the children of the two wives, will be able to receive, will be able to get what's in the ksuba, so that this way, again, it'll be an incentive for the father to give his daughter a large nedunya. So that's what the din is by ksubas bin dichron. So Papa is asikli lebrei, be abba surah. So Rapapa himself was taking care of his son's affairs, and his son was obviously marrying this man's daughter. So Azul Michtav Ksubasa, so he went to write into the Ksuba. Says Rashi, Rapapa went to Beis Avi Hanaira, to this girl's father's house, in order that it should be written into the Ksuba that exactly what would be given for as part of the dowry. So Shami Yehuda bar Mereimar, so he heard about this. Nafak, he went out, and Ases Chazile Kimatl Pischa, and he saw him when he was at the opening of the house. Habika Mifter Mine, he saw that that when he reached the opening of Abasura, that he was leaving. Yehuda, therefore, Rashi says, Noto Rishus Mirapapa Lachsal Achorav. So Emily Neomar Bahadoi, why don't you basically come in? So as we continue to Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, as the story unfolds, Chazi, so Rapapa saw Doloi Havenichale. It wasn't, for whatever reason, Yehuda didn't want to come in. So Amalei, my daitech, what is your concern? Mishum di Amrle Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Shinana, that he said, you sharp one, loy tahavi ba'avuri ach santa, that don't be present, feel mibra bishel bratava, even from a bad son to a good, from a bad son to a good son, do yadia my zar napik mine, because you don't know what's going to end up happening with their children. Koshkein mibra labrata, certainly when it comes to my son to your daughter, so hainami tekanta de rabbanan. This is just a tekanta de rabbanan. The Omer Rav Yocham Mishum Rav Shimon ben Yoichai. So it's a good thing to give the daughter-in-law. So you should come in with me. Amrule hanimili medate. That's lasuya nami. So this is only if it was with this person's intent. Says the Gemara, Amalei atu what? Mi kaminaloch da'ul v'asye. Do you think I was telling you to come in and I was going to coerce you for monies? No. Do you think Rav Papa is going to coerce Yehuda b'dvarim v'al with words? Ul come v'loi tase kamina, and I'm not going to basically say anything that's going to force you into something you don't want to do. So Amalei me'iloi didi hainu asiya. The fact that I would just come in your presence is enough that I would actually feel almost coerced. So Achve, so he forced him in, Ba'ul, and he came in, Ishtiku, to sign V'yosav, and he sat, Savar Hahu, Mirtach Rasach. The fact that he was silent, he thought that Savar Ihu, Abba Surha, thought the reason why Yehuda was silent is because Mirtzach Ratzach, he was upset Shin hadunyan hogenis be'enav. He thought it was maybe not such a great dowry. So because he was silent, he wrote basically everything that he had for his daughter, because this person was quiet, and he thought the reason why he was quiet was because he wasn't satisfied. So now you're also not talking. I'm telling you, I didn't leave anything. You're upset that I'm not giving enough of a dowry? I have nothing left for myself. So Malay said no. If it's from me, the original amount was enough. Oh, is that true? So in that case, let me retract and not give you the amount that I initially thought. He said basically, I'm not saying that you should be chayzer, that you should retract. That I'm not saying, but at the very least, you should continue with that which you promised, even though again it is a tremendous dowry. Bomine Rab Yemar Sabim Rab Nachman. So he asked the following question: Machar ksubas l'bal. Let's say she sells her ksuba to her husband. So yesh ksubas bin indichron or ein ksubas bin indichron. Once she sells the ksuba back to her husband, the question is there a din of ksubas bin indichron anymore? So why are you asking the question of selling? Why don't you ask the question if she was meichel her ksuba? Why does that mean she sells it to him? So now moicheres is what I'm posing. Even though you could maybe say the reason why she sold her ksuba is because she felt forced. She was forced to sell the ksuba is because she needed the money. So maybe she shouldn't lose her rights of the ksubas bin dichron. Damina kaman de kamachula meya uchli beuchla mochelas meboy. So he says that machula beim uchli, a person is whipped 100 lashes, so mochelas meboy. So in other words, because this person was compelled, so I wanted to be able to figure out what the din was. So you're right, I actually have the question on mochelas too. But mocheles, she was just meichelet. So what right did she have to be meichel? So that would be more of a reason for her not to get the ksubas bin dichron. However, in the case where she was meicher, maybe she only did it because she had the need for the money, but maybe that shouldn't cause her to lose out. So Rabbi Pshitali, and this is going to be question 12. Mocheres ksubas, mocheles ksubas, imeshel ksubas bin dichron. So it's simple. Mocheres ksubas lacherim. If she sold it to someone else, yesh ksubas bin dichron. My time is Zuzian Sua. Certainly we're going to say that she felt compelled to have to sell her ksuba because she needed the money, but the truth is we're not going to say that the ksubas bin dichron is lost. However, mochelas ksubasa labala, let's say she sells her, she is meichel her ksuba, not to a cherem, here it says to her husband, then certainly ein lo ksubas bin dichron. My time achilta. Certainly she was forgiving. In fact, she was meichel, so therefore she should not get the ksubas bin dichron. So there's a cherem and baal. So far we established as a davar pashut that if she would sell to someone else, there still is ksubas bin dichron. If she was meichel to her husband, there's not ksubas bin dichron. So now we can break this up into another question. Boy Rabba, mocheres ksubas labala. When it comes to, let's say, selling the ksuba, not to a cherem, which we established, there's still ksubas bin dichron. If she sells it to her husband, komecheres a cherem dami, is it like she needs the money and therefore there's still ksubas bin dichron? O kim mochelas labala dami, or is it like being meichel? Selling to your husband is like being meichel to your husband, and therefore she should not be entitled to ksubas bin dichron. So basad boy hadar pashta. So afterwards he answered this question: mocheres ksuba. When you sell the ksuba, it doesn't make any difference if it's to a regular person off the street or to your husband. Either way, we say that she was compelled, she needed the money, and that's the reason why there will still be ksubas bin dichron. So again, let's look at question 12. So mocheres yesh lo, mocheles ein lo. Simple. It doesn't make a difference who it is. The question over here actually mocher ksubasa, and it doesn't even mention to whom. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. So Masa Rav Idi Baravin. So Rav Idi Baravin asked the following question. Mesa, let's say she dies. Ein Yorshin Shulzeh, Ein Yorshin Shulzeh, Yorshin Ksubasa. No one gets the Ksuba when she dies. Says Rashi. Mishnehi bi'avamos, Heisha Shahal Balam Dinasiyam. So you have a situation where the husband went to another country, and we don't know what happened to him. You have one witness that says Meis Balech, your husband died, and based on the testimony of one witness, V'tiruha linase, we allow her to get remarried. V'nises, and she did so. V'yachach babal, and unfortunately, all of a sudden, her husband shows up. So teitzim mizem. So the din is, she has to leave the second marriage because she's still married, but she also leaves the first one. So she will not get a ksuba from either one. And then, this is how we understand this line in our Gemara, the imesav, let's say she died, in Yershin Shulzev V'zeh Banim Sheyesh Lo Mizeh Yershim Ksubasa. So the children are not going to be Yersh. So Vavin, we ask the question, Ksubasa Ma'avidita. What are we talking about regarding a ksuba? We just said that she doesn't get a ksuba. So why does it then have to say, well, by the way, the Yorshim aren't entitled to the ksuba? We just said that she doesn't get the ksuba. So why does it have to say this line? It means that in the situation where she died, the din is that there is no ksuba bin dichron. Why don't we say just like she was forced to sell, and therefore because of the ksubas bin dichron sticks, so why don't we say the same thing? Says Rashi, Kivandi Amrin and Kianisa, when she's a force, Lo Mafsik ksubas bin dichron, we don't say there's a loss, so why don't we say the same thing? She was also forced in a way. Her Yetzer Hara forced her to do what she did. She had a desire to get married and she wasn't Daika Mitzvah. So therefore, because of this, why don't we say there should be still a ksubas bin dichron? So we say, no, you can't compare the situation of being an honest with her yetzer and getting married when her husband was still alive, and based on the testimony of one witness, again, she may not have been Daika Mitzvah, to our situation of her selling her ksuba. Because Hasam Kanasahu de Kansur Rabbanan. Over there, the Rabbanan Kanaser. This is Rashi says, as we mentioned, Mishum Deloit Daika Shaper, Shemes Bala Mikmei Detinsiv. Since she wasn't very careful to investigate if, in fact, the testimony of this one witness is valid, and therefore, because of that, she just decided to get married, so we Kanas her. So you're right. Ikar Din, you probably would have Ksubas bin Dichron. However, we're Kanas her, and we say no. Yosef Rabin Bar Chanina Kamedu Rav Chista. Yosef Kaimer Mishmedu Rabbi Lezer. As we said, if you're Moichel, if there's a ksuba and she said, don't worry about it, so ein lo mezainas. So not only is there no ksuba, so there's also not going to be mezonos, which is, of course, as we know, is tied to the ksuba. So if you didn't say it in the name of such a great person as you did, then the truth is, I would say to you, meishiv ra tachas taiva. Lo samush ra mebeisai. One who returns bad for good, there should not be ever bad that should be removed from this house. So fine. Rashi says Elo Mazainis Be'almanusa the Tanai Ksuba Kiksuba. Fine. So Yosef Rav Nachman, so basically saying that, okay, this Gavar Rabba said it, so this is the din that there's no ksuba, there's no mazonis, which again is because it's a Tanai Ksuba, which is Ksuba Dami. Yosef Rav Nachman Ve'ula Ve'avimi Barav Papi Yosef Rav Chia Barami Gavaihu, also who gives a person that came to Shchiva Arusasai, that his wife, who was only engaged to him, they didn't do Nisuin, so she died. So Amri Le, they said, Zil Kavar, go and take care of the burial arrangements, Ohavla Ksuvasa, or give her Ksuba. So Amlahu Rav Chia Tanina. What do you mean? We learned Ishto Arusa, that if you have a woman and you only did erison with her, lo onain. So if you're this is not considered to be a status of you being an avelus. If you're Kohen, you cannot become tummy, even though normally a Kohen can become tummy for his wife, not if it's only erison. Which again, what does that mean? Why can't she become tummy? Mesa, if she dies, Eino Yorsha, he will not inherit her. Meshu, and if he dies, Gobik Subasa, then she could actually collect her ksuba. The time of the Meshu, that's only because he died first. But our case is Hamesa he, where she died first, Eino Ksuba. She's not going to ksuba. So my time, so Rabbi Ishia, She'en Anikariba, because we do not apply the language of the ksuba like a shetinasi, that when we actually have the suin, when you get married to someone else, titli, then I will take masha kosav lichi, what was written to me. So basically, what he's saying is that l'chayra, we see that an arusa, if in fact she dies first. So if you look at Rashi, Shena Nikaira, V'chachaysa Mishtar Ksuba, Hilka, Kozman Shlo Mace, as long as she hasn't died, Lonis Garsha, Lonis Shtabi the level, Yorish Minakum. She doesn't, no one's Yorish anything. Fine. So Shena Nikaira, Shanasal Acha, Tili Masha Kasav Lechi. Kiyas Rabin, Omer Reish Lakish, Arusa Shemesa. If you have an Arusa that died, Ein Lo Ksuba. There is no ksuba, which means that there's no din kvura. So Amrilu Abaya Zil Amrilu who go and say, as we continue to Nun Gimel Amud Beis, Shakila Tuvosech, take your goodness that you're providing, and Shadi Achizre, and throw it to the thorns. Kfar Tirgum Rabbi Ishia Ushmaite Bababel. Okay. Benan Nukvin dahavin lichiminoi. So he said that, and when it comes to your daughters, so they're going to be entitled to mizonos as part of the Tanai Ksuba, that as long as apparently they until they're married. We'll see exactly when they get mizonos until. So Rav Tani, and again this is where the father died, the Yisraelim have to provide mizonos for them. Rav Tani ad tilchoin leguvern. So Rav says it's until they're actually taken to men, which means like kicha, which is kedushin. Belevi tani ad titis bagron, until they reach the age of bagros, which is mashma. If you're a bogeris but you're not married yet, you don't get mazonos. Or if you're engaged, if you had kedushin. So even if you're not yet a bogeres, l'chayra, still you don't get ksuba. You don't get the mazonos. So l'rav, avgav the bagar, according to Rav, it's mashma, even if she's a bogeres, if she's not yet married, you still have to give her mazonos. So Levi avgav the insiv. That's very hard to understand. Levi's mashma, even if, let's say she gets married when she's a katana. So if she gets married as a katana, you still have to give her. Elo like this. Bagar vo insiv. Let's say she became a bogeres when she's not married, or insiv v'loy bagar, she got married, they're calling him a little pligi. In that situation, everyone holds that's it, right? So if one or the other happens, then there's no question that she will no longer get the mazonos. Ki pligi barusa v'lo bagar. The question is, let's say there was erison v'loy bagar, and she's not a bogeres, not insiv, that she actually got married, but only erison. So that's where the machlokas is. At the time of erison, is that enough? Rav Omer says Rashi ad tilchon kicha the erison. Once there's an erison, ve'afilu loy bagar levi oy tibagron o yinasu v'yetzu. So he says even according to Levi, either when she's a bogeres or when she gets married, v'yetzu mershos av l'gamri kibagros. That is when it's no longer. But according to Rav, he says until there's even a kicha of erison. So again, the question is it leaving the reshus of av, which is a nesuin, or even an erison? So at that point, if she's a katana, and only erison is a machlokas whether you still have to feed her. V'chein tani leva masnisa ad titis bagron. V'yimtu zimnehoin din sabon. So tarti, it says that she's a bogeris, and it reaches the time for her to get married. So it sounds like you need both. It says Rashi Magias man shneim aser chaydish lebesula mishatavu habal. El oi, it means like this: o to bagron, o yamate zimnehoin liin saba. So either she's bogeris or that she is nisuna has taken place. Ketanai ad maseh habas nezainis. So until when does the daughter get mezainis? Ad sheti ares. So here it says clearly that once erison takes place, that's it. Mishum Rebbe Lezer Amar ad sheti bager. It's until she becomes a bogeris, which again is mashma even if she's not engaged or married. Tani Rabbi Yosef ad de havian, which usually sounds like a language of Nisuin, but it's not so clear what that means. Iboilhu havoya de erison or havoya de Nisuin teku. Armali Rav Chisda Rav Yosef. Mi shamalach min Rabbi Huda. Okay, let's stop there for 1 second before we continue. Let's look at TA 7. Mimatai ein lebanais mezonos ukuli alma. When does she definitely not get mezonos? Either at the time of Nisuin or when she becomes a bogeris. The machlokis is again when it comes to erison. That is where the machlokis is. TA 7. Okay. So again, Bagar will insever insevoi bagar kolim will play he play Yebrusavoi bagar. Okay. Weiter. So now the Gemara poses the following question. Armali Rav Chisda Rav Yosef. Mi shamilach minei de Rav Yehuda. Anyone hear this how to answer this following query? Arusa yeshul mazonis o enel mazonis. What's the din when it comes to an arusa? Which again is what we've been discussing. Does she still get mazonis until Nisuin? Or once erison takes place, that's it, she automatically now will no longer get mazonos from the assignment. So Amrule, Mashma Mishma lo Shmili. I actually didn't hear the answer to this question. El Masvara Leisla. If I use my logic, I would assume that once erison takes place, she should no longer get mazonos. Why? Kivan di irsa, because once she's engaged, Lonichale de titzel. It's not good to go. What does that mean? So her husband, her husband to be, will feed her now, so she won't be going and begging for food. So the brothers shouldn't need to feed her. So basically, he's saying that once it's erison, which means she has this emotional connection to this man, so no longer should we require the assignment to have to give mazonos, because she will get mazonos from her husband, because her husband's is not going to just allow this to for her not to get anything. This is question 13. His arsa im nezainis metanai ksuba. So again, once she has erison, maybe she should not get mazonos because certainly her husband to be is going to take care of her. That's one way of looking at it. And this is also TB8. Alternatively, Amrle im mishma l'shmilach. If in fact you didn't hear it, then misfar isla. You should actually think the logic the other way around, that she should get mazonos, even though she's now engaged. Why? It's true, they're engaged, and it's a beautiful thing. But who says that they're going to end up continuing to the stage of Nisuin? Most of the time it does. But up until that point, the husband may be apprehensive to give her mazonos, and therefore, for that reason, Yisomim still have to provide. The Ikadi Amri, and there are those that say, Amrle, Mishmal Shmiel, I didn't hear it, Misvar Isla. Again, logically, there should be mazonos. Kivandalo Kimle Begava, since he's not sure, will they actually finish the marriage? Lo Shadi Zuzibichti. Amrle, Mishmal Shmielach, Mistaber Lesle. You should say, logically, should not be. Kivan the irsa, once she's engaged already, certainly the husband to be is not going to want her to be knocking on doors. So the question is how it was said, but the svaros either way are the same. Simin de Gavri Shak Zorab me'ana, v'yivama, shenia, rusa, v'anusa. So these are going to be all questions on this mnemonic. So bo'ami name Rav Sheshis. So the following question was posed: Mamenes yeshlo mazonos o eno mazonos. So when it comes to the din of miyun, Rashi explains, as we know this, a girl who is a katana and who is a yasaima, so her father is the one who does the kedusha deraisa, is not around. So what do we do? So there's a possibility shehisiu hachia, that either the mother, or here he mentions the older brother, midrabanan, marries her off, and therefore, because it's only kedusha derabanan, so therefore she has the right to do miyun. Umi'ana bebala v'chazer etzlam. So basically, she left her husband, and now she's going back to the Isaimim. So the question is, now do the Isaimim have to pick up the din of giving mazonos, up until she, of course, reaches the age of bagris? Once she becomes a bagaris, then certainly it's not an issue. So again, the question is, do we say that, well, since it was like she was never married, because miyun is kind of like uproots the entire marriage from the beginning retroactively, or do we say no, she was married and she left in the father's domain, and therefore that's it? So Amalei Rav Sheshis Tinisu, we actually learned this. Almana bebeis avia, if you have a widow from her father's house, in other words, as Rashi says, Klara mina erisin, ugerusha bebeis avia, and you have, because she's still in the father's house, so it means it was only erisin, or she was divorced bebeis avia, which means again she was engaged. There wasn't nesuin, but she was only engaged. Only erisin took place, and she got divorced. But shemeres yavam, or we have a situation with shemeres yavam, which is a case where her husband dies and they're childless, so she's going to do yibum. Bebeis avia, but again, her husband died only at the time of erisin. So yeshel mazonos. So in all these cases, we say there is mazonos. Yehuda Omer oida bebeis avia yeshel mazonos. If she's still linked to her father because it was only erisin, there was never a nesuin that took place, so therefore still she gets mazonos. Ein bebeis avia, ein mazonos. However, once she is left the father's domain, that's it. Now Rabbi Yehuda hainu tanakama elalav mamenes ikabenayu l'chayra. It's a machlokas. The Tanakama savar isla, Rabbi Yehuda savar leisla. Rabbi Yehuda will actually say that she will not get mazonos, because even though it's true maybe retroactively they weren't married, but she did leave her father's house, and therefore according to Rabbi Yehuda, if miyun took place, she would not be getting any more mazonos from her brothers, from the Isaimim. However, according to the Tanakama, in fact, because it was retroactive, she will get mazonos. That's question number one. Boy Reish Lakish Bas Yavama. When it comes to the daughter of a Yavama, Yeshel Mazonos or Eno Mazonos. So what exactly this means? So Rashi says like this: so a person, again, you had this woman, her husband died, childless, and the brother does marry her, does Yibum, Yodlo Bas, and they actually have a daughter. So Yeshel Mazonos Achavisa Sa'av. Do we say that this daughter will get mazonos after the father's death? Min achim, to the brothers, nechse aviha, do we give to this daughter from her father's estate? Since the ksuba is linked to the first husband, so leisla. So we should say then maybe she should not get. Says Rashi, ksubasa ena al nichse yavam tonight ksuba delay nami lav al nechasabhu. O dilma kivan de iles la marisha and taking rabbanim mesheni isla teku. So there's a din that it's true you're supposed to collect everything from the first, the husband that died, the brother that died, but if he doesn't have, then the yavam is mechuyev to take care. So therefore maybe there is a din mezainis. Question number 3. Boy Rabbi Elazar Bas Shnia. So the first one by me is a machlokas, and by the case of Bas Yavama, it's a teku. Boy Rabbi Elazar Bas Shnia Yeshel Mazonos Eino Mazonos. So Rashi says Misha Nasa Shnia Medivri Sefer. So if a person married a Shnias Larayas, which is an Isser Durabanan, so in that situation they ended up having a daughter. Hashnia ein lo ksuba. So it says there's no ksuba and there's no mazonos for the woman who was a shnia sarais who you shouldn't have been married to, because that was an isser. But the question is, you end up having a daughter. The question is, and now the man died, does this child get mazonos? It wasn't her fault. So this is what the Gemara asks. So we continue. Perhaps we should say that kivan delays ksuba leis mazaini, because there's no ksuba for the mother, so there should not be mazonos for the daughter either, because again, the Tanai ksuba is linked to the ksuba. There's no ksuba. Odilma ima of the isura kansura banan. It was the mother who was the Shnei Sarai. She should not have gotten married to this guy, so therefore we can ask her. However, Ihi, the daughter, of Isura, she didn't do anything wrong. She was just born. So lo kansura banan. Maybe we shouldn't kanas her, and therefore we should say that she should be entitled to get teku. So again, we have another teku. Another question. Boy Rava Bas Arusa. So we talked about the case of an Arusa, whether there's mazonos or not, and you can look at it one way or the other, whether or not there'll be mazonos in that case. How about a Bas Arusa? Says Rashi, Habal al Arusasai. So this is Arusa. So a person has bia with his arus, v'yaldalo, and she gives birth, ubase, and the man dies, v'lo banim, their children, yeshua zenis ben lo. Now, why would you say yes or not? Now, kivandi isla ksuba isla. Now, there is a ksuba over here, because let's say, for example, he actually did write the ksuba from the time of Erison, or the Rabbanim were masakin in that place, that a ksuba should be given to a woman who was even at the time of Erison. So therefore, maybe there is mazonos. So dilma kivandol taken rabbanan ksuba achas nesuan leislok teku. So let's say, not like I said there, but typically speaking, the ksuba is only at the time of nesuan. The fact that the guy wrote the ksuba by Erison doesn't really matter, and because that the takana is of the Tanai ksuba is only the time when the ksuba is generally written, which is at the time of nesuan. So the question is, by Bas Anusa, what is the din? Bas Arusa, excuse me. Bayra Papa. And now we're going to, I think, see the last question. Bas Anusa. Now, a woman who was raped, was violated, so he's mechuyev to marry that woman, and he does. And then afterwards, they have a daughter. Now, and then he dies. The question is, do the Yisayimim provide for this daughter? Yesh mazenis or no mazenis. Now, leave it Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda loti boilach. According to him, it's not a question. Tiyama yeshel ksuba mana, because he says that there is a ksuba in this situation, so therefore certainly she'll get mazonos. So kiti boilach leave the Rabbanan the army yatsa kesev kanasa b'ksubasa, that the kanas is connected to the ksuba, and therefore really there is no ksuba. So my kivan leisla ksuba leisla mazaini, so therefore she won't get. Well, dilma ksuba taimamai. What is the whole reason why there's a ksuba? Okay, fine. There's no ksuba, but the reason why there's no ksuba is because we don't want a man to quickly divorce a woman. If there's no ksuba, there's no downside. There's no need to have this ksuba anyway, because one of the requirements is once he marries her, if she doesn't refuse, and her father and her want to marry this guy, it's hard to believe it could possibly happen, but it could happen, he is not allowed to divorce her. He has to remain married to her. So therefore, there's no need to have a ksuba in this case. So maybe there is mazonos teku. Adkan.